Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's Metaworld News. This week, indeed, we are bringing you the highlights for the week ending 30th of June, 2019. That is, yes.
Indeed.
The other variety is, yes, 2020 variety is yet to come, about a year's time. Um, yeah, and tomorrow, unbelievable, tomorrow will be on the 1st of July. I was reading some news items that this morning, rounding up some news, and I realised that some items still had a date of the end of May, and I thought, oh well, that's just about a week ago, isn't it?
Right.
Like had it just a month ago. Anyway, that's aside. In the real world, over here in the UK, of course, it is the Glastonbury weekend, and I enjoyed a few things on Friday. But when I went to actually try and connect and choose my stage and what I wanted to watch to yesterday, I was out of luck because we had an internet outage. In fact, I was worried that the show might not even get done.
Wow.
Fortunately, we are back now, but yes, I missed some performances yesterday, but we did enjoy 93 degrees heat if enjoy is the right
Yeah.
word. I was happy with it actually, but never mind. So anyway, all is good. But as a result of yesterday's outage, I have been catching up on 2 days instead of one over the weekend here for you. So I've got a few links up here that I haven't actually read fully myself. Just a word of warning there in case I sound slightly unauthoritative, as they say.
Mhm.
Anyway, the person talking to you, by the way, my name is Mal Burns. And I'm joined next to me by who's multitasking on our little video buttons and screens and all that stuff, and intervening from time to time is James Outloud. So welcome, James.
Oh, thanks, Mal. I'm sure enjoyed being here.
Uh, You can find me personally on Twitter at twitter.com/malburns. This time it's all one word, Malburns. And there's an additional Twitter feed at twitter.com/. Metaworld News, again squashed together as all one word. And I'm going to remind you, I don't normally do this here, but if you are one of those people that still hangs out with Second Life platform, I do have another feed which features machinima and destinations and arts from that platform only. And that is twitter.com/Malbones, or one word again, underscore, and then writer, as in people what write novels or author things. You get it. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that. Malbones is the main feed, and Malbones is me. And what follows any second now are my highlights from that Malbones feed. And I'm going to be starting with we often cover Voices of VR. .com here. Um, they produce several a week. If you're watching this show last week, you'll notice that a couple of the broadcasts from last week were all about psychedelics and sort of their relationship with virtual worlds, or not, as the case may be. And that theme very much continues this week. Number 777, which would have been earlier in the week, the beginning of the week. You're currently looking at a nice little graphic that comes up as part of that blog. Basically, it's about psychedelics and VR as scaffolding to reach altered states of consciousness, plus experiential medicine, plus latent human potentials. God, it's got it all there, hasn't it? And as you can see, if you go to the site, you can press that and listen to it. Although you can obviously subscribe to the podcast elsewhere too. And consciousness transformation model is the thing that goes with that. Anyway, the interview, basically, the podcast is with Dr. Cassandra Veaton, who's president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Lovely. She's not bad either. I shouldn't say such things on here, should I? Right. Her current tagline is yeah, Informed by Science is the current tagline. She gave the opening keynote at Consciousness Hacking's Awaken Futures Summit, where she talked about psychedelics, immersive technology, and meditation techniques as scaffolding into altered states of consciousness. And yeah, generally speaking, that's that. Okay, you can check that out, of course, at voicesofvr.com. Putting that away, we're back on an earlier one. Oh, a later one, rather. This is on June 23rd. This is 779. Similar theme. Using VR as a psychedelic primer or integration tool with Andromeda Entertainment. Do remember that the broadcasters of Voices of VR were recently at this hacked whatever it is conference. So the psychedelic theme is very much a direct result of their being at that conference, interviewing various people. They do other stuff too. If you bear with them for a couple of weeks, right? As always, a nice picture showing somebody with looking very comfortable in a contraption on their head, and I'm pretty sure they're not. They're wearing headphones and a contraption, and trying to look very om and peaceful and meditative. But to be honest, I'd rather focus my tantric energies on a mandala or something rather than a clunky headset. But there you go.
Wow.
There you go. Different opinions. Andromeda Entertainment creating and distributing immersive entertainment experiences for healing and self-actualization. They did a previous talk with this, and this is a follow-up with some different people at the same company. They got an artist. There's quite a lot of people involved in this podcast. So if you're interested in that, I'll just point you to voicesofvr.com. Voices of VR is three words squashed together, and the bit for VR is actually the letters VR. In other words, voicesofvr.com, which might be an easier way of putting it, or not, as the case may be. Right, moving on. VR Times, another major outlet for virtuality news. Using virtuality to kill boredom. Well, I can go with that, but of course, this has an addendum on the end. In autonomous vehicles.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I guess the idea here is you're going to sit in one of those things, which is a driverless car. This one was called a Waymo, apparently. God, I don't know where they get these names from. It's even got a logo. That W looks like somebody else's logo, actually. I can't think whose. But there's a logo on the back of the car there. Does that remind you of anybody, James? I'm sure it does me. It looks like somebody else's logo, the W.
I can't tell
Uh,
for sure,
no,
but
I can't tell.
well.
Okay, well, it's way more. Anyway, well, apparently you'll have virtuality and, in that car. And it's obviously for kids and backseat travelers and things like that on long journeys. You used to hand them out a like portable DVD player, and they often brought portable games machines with them. And presumably now the idea is you can sort of turn the backseat part of your car into an immersive environment where they don't even know they're in the car and don't talk to you or anything. All you do is try driving while they're screaming. Bam, bam, boom, boom, gotcha, gotcha.
Oh, quite an
which,
image.
which, yeah. Well, I'm sure you can imagine it. Just
Mm-hmm.
get
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It may be actually not so good for the driver, just for the juvenile passengers.
Mm.
Anyway, uh, they're talking about in-car virtual entertainment, and quite a lot of industry players are on board. You've got Ford, Daimler, Volkswagen, and some of the Silicon Valley players are Uber and Waymo, actually, that's owned by Google or Alphabet, I should say, by the way, that
Mm-hmm.
brand, who are looking at it all too. And basically, during the last week, there was a CES Asia technology trade show held in Shanghai, and automobile makers were showcasing instances of this technology. And there's a little bit to read more about that, which I'm not going to read out to you. HoloRide, yeah,
Mm.
a startup founded by Audi. Hollow riding, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Not quite sure what's that. Maybe you put a hologram of yourself in a car, and then the car moves your hologram instead of you. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever. Moving on. Moving on. Right. This is cute. It always is, isn't it? It's Walt Disney. Not quite the Walt Disney we know and love from our childhood, but there we are. Walt Disney Pictures, um, who, of course, do very un-Disney-like things these days, actually, come to think of it. Anyway, they're going to debut a VR animation called The Kite's Tale, which, by the way, there's been a version of this around somewhere. I guess the debut is a fully fledged product as opposed to a sampler. And that will be at SIGGRAPH 2019. Um, it's a conference and expo and usually a good place to discover experimental VR tech. And Disney Animation will be showing this thing, The Kite's Tale, July 28th to August the 1st, and it's held at the LA Convention Center. So if you're anywhere near Los Angeles and have a bit of cash to spend on the entrance fee, you might care to move in there. Little about this project is known right now, though a few months ago we reported that Disney was working on a top secret
Hmm.
new animation project that could use existing characters. Um, they say it's possible that this Kite's Tale could actually be that project. Maybe I'm thinking of something else that had a very similar name to a Kite's Tale or something. But anyway, Disney have their own in-house VR animation software called Pose VR, and they the commentators there are wondering. They're saying it'd be interesting to see if this particular example actually uses their own software.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anyway, uh, other experiences like Doctor Who and Mind Palace and various stuff will also be at that event. Tickets are being issued on a first come, first served basis each day. And hopefully, Upload VR, as they say, will be at the show to give you a rundown of what's new when it all happens, which it hasn't yet. So let's move on. Right, Road to VR, another very consistent site here. Um, every time I come here these days, it requires a bit of tweaking. I think every time it defaults to the most unfriendly style sheet I've ever seen.
Hmm.
In which case, I shall have to go to Zoom. Yes, indeed, and do a little bit of zooming. Just like that. See, the magic happens live on your screen. Right, now I'm in position. Um, this is rather interesting. We all know about Windows Mixed Reality. Microsoft, basically getting in. It's called Windows VR headsets, but it's basically Microsoft's idea of VR. Um, Apparently, most of Microsoft's VR headsets have now vanished from the Microsoft Store, and there's very limited stock available elsewhere, which is leading Ben Lang, Voices of VR, to kind of wonder if they're being phased out. And I mean, Microsoft have been dropping an awful lot of stuff recently. They've had steep discount for months, and they've vanished from the online store and have limited stock elsewhere. Microsoft has not offered an explanation, but signs are pointing towards discontinuation of at least some headsets. And six other companies have offered one or more of the headsets as well. Um, yeah, they're just pointing that out. Really, they're not actually saying the other companies are discontinuing them too. But we will see. We will see if there's any future in Microsoft's own mixed reality products. Um, as ever. Right, moving
Yep.
on, moving on. VR Times again. This virtualrealitytimes.com. That's three big full words all squashed together into one, by the way. Virtualrealitytimes.com. And commonly known by their masthead as VR Times, at least. And they even used the Times font for the second bit. Although I've never seen the star above the I in the regular Times font. Have
Hmm.
you?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Right, new tech brings taste to virtual reality. Well, we've talked about virtual smell and all the other things. It had to happen. Somebody has figured out how they're going to bring taste into virtual reality. And innovations make virtual reality more immersive and more realistic. Development of haptics is now an advanced stage. Startup coming with cool innovations for smell, sense, etc. The latest breakthrough is something many of us might have deemed unthinkable a few years back: a virtual taste. And
Hmm.
it's not done with sound; it's done with light. Scientists have developed a virtual taste experience which generates the sensation of taste, presumably different tastes, through the controlling of neurons using light. The new system has been successfully tested on flies. Yeah, well, put a fly in a headset and flash some lights at it, and you call it a success. How on earth do you test it on flies and then say it's been successful? I mean,
You
that
read the paper.
exactly, if there is one. Okay. um, uh, I don't know. Anyway, the OptoPad tool consists of two high-tech components. The first is optogenetics, cutting-edge technique that deploys light by controlling neuron activity, switching them from either on or off. The second component is an extra system that's been developed known as FlyPad. Oh, okay. Well, look at this. If you really want to follow the link, you can get a video. Right? Drosophila feeding on a fly pad. Maybe that's a fly
It's a fruit fly.
showing us its experience
Yep.
as we go along.
Doubtless.
Well,
Yep.
actually, I definitely want to buy these. If it will get rid of, I have a plague around certain parts of the apartment here in the flute fly season, and I can never find a way of getting rid of them.
Oh yeah.
Now, if there is some device, virtual reality or not, a piece of technology that will otherwise occupy my fruit flies and keep them out of my hair. Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Anyway, I have no more comments on that. I suppose it had to be coming. Whether
Uh,
there's any consumer take up on this or whether they'll just dedicate it to it would just be used by fruit fly researchers, I don't know. But anyway, you find out more about that at virtualitytimes.com. Right, when you plug in your monitors these days, it's not the old VGA socket anymore. I mean, you have HDMI, which is a thing used for television imports largely, and also on computers, a display port, which is a bit more robust for computer use. DisplayPort 2 is a new standard for that socket, and it's said to provide a 3 times increase in data bandwidth performance, and it will support greater than 8K resolutions. It then says on standard monitors, which is nonsense. I mean, a standard monitor that isn't 8K cannot show 8K. It's just it can display 8K at some lower resolution, if you see what I mean. But anyway, quibbling aside, they're all hailing the new standard DisplayPort 2. Um, and the fact that you can actually support 4K displays, but dual displays, in other words, simultaneous to 4K displays side by side at 120 kilohertz, which is quite a fast refresh rate. Although arguably, well, it depends on the display technology. I mean, a refresh rate on tended to be more important back in the days of cathode ray tubes. It's not really that important so much now. Um, I was reading this. I was, yes. However, the sign here, of course, is that if you imagine you have a headset for virtuality where you've got two screens right in front of your eyes. If those two screens, the two of them together, are all supported by the same graphics card, and sorry, well, graphics card with DisplayPort 2 in it, basically. Um, then the fidelity of the picture in each eye will be the equivalent of a modern TV set. So it would depend on where the eyepieces in the virtual reality headset actually support 4K pixels. I forget what the actual measurement is, but I think it's something like 2,800 pixels high. It's certainly rather a lot more than your average 720 HD experience.
mhm.
Anyway, more about that. You'll find this at road2vr.com. It's road2vr, or one word.com. VR, of course, being in letters. And a lot of tech specs there as well for what's on offer with that piece of hardware. Okay, moving to vrscout.com. That's VR Scout. Again, we got letters and it's all one word, no spaces. vrscout.com. And June 28th, a couple of days ago, in fact, A VR experience gave attendees at E3 a platform for inclusion. And there's a picture of the thing involved. This is actually an interactive VR painting, which provided unrepresented communities with a meditative space to share thoughts and identity. And there's a bit of history in this post. About 50 years ago, in morning of June 28, 69, violent demonstrations erupted in the streets of Manhattan when police officers raided a Greenwich Village gay bar called the Stonewall Inn. Homosexuality was illegal at the time, and oh, that's interesting. As was wearing fewer than three pieces of clothing that didn't belong to your biological sex. That's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting
Yeah.
anecdotal piece. Anyway, that night the police had just started their, I love this, usual routine of beating up and harassing offending individuals. When the community finally reached its boiling point and bar patrons flooded out the doors and began to fight back, and of course that's history now, really. And we're in the midst of something called Pride Month. And let's move on down to the connection here. Um, Perhaps it's the heightened awareness of pride that drew the author so magnetically to the story of the VR confessionals, which was E3. Quaint sort of graphics, really. But it's actually a world that was painted in tilt brush by Estella Tassi. Um, and the mission of the whole thing is to connect diverse women. I thought I meant too. I think I've got this. I've skipped ahead here. In the gaming industry, leveraging their collective voices to encourage inclusion and representation. And I can't really tell you how all this works. You better really read the article if it's something you're interested in. I mean, if you're into tilt brush and things actually created in VR for VR, if you see what I mean. Yeah, there's quite a lot about it here and some videos to watch, which I'm not going to do. But yeah, you can see what's going on there. So I thought that was interesting anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a relevance over and beyond VR for the sake of VR. All right, Voices of VR podcast. Where do these come from? You have to ask. This is the most recent one, I think, from this week. 782. Now, this actually is uh, a rare one recently, which is not about psychedelics. Ah, shock horror. Whether they go back to psychedelics or whether they've actually ended the conference stuff, I don't know. But this is about something called Valve Index. The
Mm-hmm.
Valve is a headset. Is that the HTC one, or is it another
No,
maker
it's it.
entirely? No, Valve. Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Um,
who's manufacturing the hardware, but it's being sold by Valve. It's called Valve's headset.
right. Okay. Well, this is a new one from Valve called the Valve
I
Index.
think it might be
Uh,
Lenovo is helping with
yeah,
this.
it's a strong vision for the future of high-end PC VR with solid tracking, fidelity, hand-tracked index controllers that provide a deep sense of hand presence. Valve sent me a hardware to review, and I shared my full impressions at the end of the podcast. But the bottom line is that Valve is releasing high-end hardware that will surely provide the absolute best high-end virtual reality experience on the PC in the near future. I presume this episode is sponsored by Valve, right?
Right.
Certainly, from the way they word it, it does seem to be hyping it up. Anyway, find out more about that at voicesofvr.com. And this particular show is number 782, though you'll obviously see from the titles which one it is. Right, moving on. Uploadvr.com, yes, again. This is also about the same headset. Somebody called Gabe Newell is saying the Index VR headset is a critical milestone for Valve. And this is that same person from Valve, presumably, snapped while he was talking. Gosh golly, how dare he do that? Snap him up while he's talking. He'll be posting selfies next, won't he? Right. So throughout the history of Valve, they've had significant milestones. He says he, by the way, is the president and co-founder of the Valve Corporation. Just um, for clarity's sake. And the Index launch party was on June 27th. So It's a bit of a roundup there, but as you can see, I'm not going to play this, but you can actually you can hear him deliver his party speech. That sounds like an election, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On video, and I don't know what kind of experience that would be, but it's probably you get audio to go with pictures like that, I suppose. Right, so if you want that, oh, and there's more photographs of the thing on a mannequin as well. Right, so that is found at uploadvr.com. I think we have another post coming up on the new DisplayPort 2 technology. Um, oh, right, this is actually pretty much a repeat of the other post, but it has got some more extensive photographs in it. As you can see, showing the sort of way it might be put together in a headset. And some this has got the tech specs, whereas the other one was more of a news release, if you see what I mean. So Upload VR, which we've just been to, is also the place to look up that article. Enough said. Right. I don't know quite what to make of this. This is uploadvr.com yet again. And it's about something called the Museum of Other Realities, which curates VR art with an early access release. And there you have it. Now, I'm just going to quickly shunt over to another link I've got, which is in the Metaworld news section. Here we are. Right, this is at YouTube. It's a clip about the oh, you'll have to put up with the thing at the top there, but look at it. This is only 43 seconds, so I'm going to play it. I don't know where you'll be able to hear the sound, but you'll get the idea.
Yeah, the sound's low, but I hear a little bit of
Right.
music.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll talk over it anyway. We're just the music is very pleasant, but nothing exciting. But the visuals are rather actually nice. And this is basically is virtuality art, and the platform MOR, the Museum of Other Realities, is the a curated museum of all sorts of simulated art. And I must say that kind of looked kind of nice. There's an early access availability, um, but you have to go to that Steam kind of download site to get it, and you just go to store.steampad.com/app. Oh, balls! It doesn't give me the whole thing. I'm sorry. You
Now
have
you're
to
in
go and look it up
Minecraft,
on you.
right?
You have to go and look it up on Steam. Go, oh, brilliant! Because you just look for Museum Other Realities or MOR, I believe it is $20 if you want that early access. But I must say I did quite like it. And here we got the blog again. Also, I think that's the same video embedded on the blog there. Um, yep. So, VR artists and creators have been gathering in the museum regularly for several months in what are essentially simulated art gallery openings. And the early release builds on their community so that it becomes a new kind of gathering place and community centre that promotes a wide range of artists spread across the globe and brought together in VR. Um, they also tried visiting them in the Valve Index, which of course is the thing they were talking about a second ago, and they do recommend it. Yeah. What I find interesting about this and sort of stuff is that if it's a museum and it's curating virtual art, it does raise the question of what platforms are used to create the virtual art itself. For example, if somebody went to the LEA in Second Life and created an installation, is there a way that they could capture it and recreate it in this curated museum if the museum so required? The same for OpenSim, same for Hypothesis, same from ScienceSpace. Um, you know, or uh, or conversely, is there an actual limitation for this? For example, um, imagine, for example, that the only things they could display on this platform are things created in Tiltbrush. Well, that would be rather limiting to be a truly curated museum of art. So they're not very clear on specifics like that. All we know is that you can use a nice headset like a Valve Index, plug, to go to Steam and get an early access copy, but it doesn't really tell you I don't know what happens when you're running the app, what the credits are like, whether it tells you what kind of software was used for creating the installation. But it does, although it looked very pretty, I would say it did look a bit samey, which leads me to suspect that most of the art that's in it has been created on, if not the same, very similar platforms. But um, you know, maybe one of you wants to go and get a headset and try it out and let me know and come along even and give us give us the full details because it did look very nice. I have to say that. Right. Okay, moving on to VR Times again. This is virtualrealitytimes.com. Three long words squashed together as one. .com. And this is about a modular studio, which is a new app for virtual reality music creation. Now, we've discussed this kind of thing before. You might say, well, virtual reality isn't that sort of whiz-bang visuals that, with flying things that come and hit you on the head, except they don't hit you on the head, they hit your bloody motorcycle helmet on the head instead. Uh, blah, blah, blah. No, not just that. Technically, if I mean, one example, um, and I don't know where this can be done, but if you have a decent surround sound set up in your hi-fi, for example, you're already in a kind of immersive sound situation where whatever you're listening to is probably being encoded so that parts of it are behind you, parts of it are centered in front of you, and other parts of it are spread out over the left to right, front hemisphere, should we say. The only thing you can't do is stand up from where you're sitting and find and move around in that sound. I mean, sure, if you move to the center speakers, they get a bit louder, and if you move to the rear speakers, they get a bit louder. But they're not interacting with you. It's not sound that's created for your presence in a point of the soundstage. Whereas music in VR very much designed so that wherever on the soundstage you were present, if soundstage is even the right word anymore, I don't know. But imagine you're present on a stage where sound is, then the whole nature of the sound will vary depending on where you are situated. So if you're in a headset, of course, this might be in the dark. You might have a completely black screen in your viewfinder, which actually will probably be quite effective because it would focus your attention on the sound rather than giving you any distracted visuals. But it's still very valid use of virtuality. And of course, at the end of the day, if you've got that, music and sound parts of it, and then you create visuals to match or complement is probably the better uh, approach. Um, then you've got an audio visual experience too, but you've got to think of the sound almost as a separate unit. It's a bit like, watching a film in the cinema. The actors have hopefully done their job, the director's done their job, the cinematographer's done his job. But a movie without any kind of soundtrack is, well, there are plenty around actually, but it's not quite the same experience as when you got all the, sort of rippling violins and gushing drums and trumpets and wailing electric guitars or whatever they need to enhance the atmosphere in the movie. So music and sound, very important part there. And Modular Studio is a specific app, for this. They do compare the fact you've got VR rhythm games such as Beat Saber and stuff. Modulia, as in module, Modulia Studio is being developed with both VR music creation as well as live performance in mind. So there's an illustration of it. There's not much you can say about that, is there really? Doesn't really show you much about its capabilities, though presumably if the board and all the stuff there is touchable, the individual elements are touchable and you program stuff, it looks like the sort of thing you would actually have to really experiment with to get the idea. Anyway, it works with the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Rift S. And is a standalone app you can use to generate your own tunes. The app features an array of instruments, blah blah blah, um, and yes, technical stuff. App includes editing and fine-tuning features. Can be used by beginners as well as experienced musicians. To fully display its capabilities, you should use it in conjunction with music creation software like Ableton Live. So it looks like it's part of a MIDI compatible audio digital workstation rather than just a standalone platform that will do everything you can possibly want. And yeah, that's a bit worrying if it's stuck on the Oculus versions for the moment. Um, the Pro version is a full package for 200 US dollars. There appears to be a minor version that can be unlocked for $40. But anyway, if music is your thing or audio is your thing, and you like wearing your Oculus, for example, then maybe you want to check that out. Okay, I told you I hadn't fully read all my links this week. It's beginning to show. Right, moving on. Now, I've got two links here now that go to Hypergrid Business. Both of these, actually, the links are in the Metaworld News feed we have for this show. The 4th of July, which is this coming week, one day, oh, hang on, Monday, this must be Thursday, is the 4th of July. This, of course, is a big thing for you guys over there in America, you celebrating your independence. Silly people, silly people. Why did you want to declare independence?
I wasn't there, so I don't
Oh,
know.
what are the daftest ideas? I bet you that trumped up buffoon invented the idea. No, he couldn't have done, could he? Ah, who knows? Who knows? I actually laughed this week when the buffoon tweeted to what's his name of North Korea.
Kim Jong
I'm
Un.
I'm in South
Yep.
Korea, sort of. Why not come to the border and say hello? And he did. They did. In fact, the buffoon put his foot on North Korean territory. That's a first for an American, apparently. Right, anyway,
Right.
about it. I do find that a bit actually funny for once. Right, Discovery Grid, Tranquility Grid, and Listville Grid, they're all grids here on OpenSim, as is the Metaworld Grid that we have for our studios on here. Um, they're all having events on the 4th of July for patriotic Americans or anyone really who's looking for a party. um, Begin your day on Discovery Grid. Their party starts at 10:30 a.m. This is Pacific time. Um, oh dear, oh dear. Maria Carlisle wrote the article. I think she's one of her famous typos here, by the look of it. Discoveryfrid.net. It's Discovery Grid. So it's Discovery and then GRID, all one word, right?
Hmm.
Don't take any notice of that link. It's not going to take you there, right? You get them on port number 8002, and then the region you want is called Discovery Events 2, and that's 10:30 Pacific time. Their stuff starts. An hour and a half later. No, sorry, quite a bit later actually. 4 p.m. Tranquility Grid start their celebration. This is 4 p.m. Pacific time, and it's their address is tranquility-grid.info. And again, they're on port 8002, and the region you want is called the Pier. Two separate words there, the Pier. And finally, you can find out the day with a bang from Littlefield Grid. Blah blah blah. Bang indeed. Right, from 8 p.m. Pacific time, going through until 1 a.m. in what would be July the 5th, I guess. You'll find Littlefield Grid over at lfgrid.com. Also on port 8002, which is the most common port really for all these things. And then the region you want there is Independence Island. Again, that's two words, Independence Island. And Maria needs a typo checker. Anyway, she says, be sure to be there at might. Presumably it means night. And then for the fireworks show. Who knows what a might is? Spelt M-I-G-H-T. Mighty Mice, yes. Don't know what I'm talking about, do I? Before you go, you can check out the Independence Day themed outfits on the Kindly Market or go shopping for seasonal merchandise at DigiWorld's Hypermall. Their address is login.digiworlds. That's DIGIWORLDZ. So login.digiworlds.com. Once again, port 8002, and the region you want is DigiWorlds Hyper That's three words. DigiWorlds space hyper space mal. And anyway, Maria's post continues with sort of a picture, sort of celebrating that. That's interesting. The Pacific Northwest Discovery Grid. I did not actually know that. That's Tara territory. For those of you who know what that means.
Mm.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we got a repeat basically of the information with more information further down. They've all got suitable posters, as you can probably see. Um, oh, yeah, okay, some extra. Right. Whenever I scroll the poster Hypergood Business, I think I've got it all over with. Then I discover there's a whole different post at the bottom. Right, Trail Riders. Well, that's actually on today at 3 p.m. Pacific, which does that have to do red, white, and blue? Anyway, that's today, Sunday. It's they're horse racing. The trail riders is horse racing of some sort. Anyone can participate in the race, and winners will get cash prizes in Globits. Um, that's on tranquility-grid.info 8002 again, and the region is simply called Trail Riders, so that's fun. And also, they've got another region. Their grid owner, Steve Stewart, told Hypergrid Business it's called Winter Magic. Again, this is Tranquility Grid, and bit the wrong time of year. If maybe no, they're in for the northern hemisphere. They're having had 93 degrees of blistering sunshine yesterday. Don't seems a bit of out of place, doesn't it? But maybe it's a place to go and cool off.
Hmm.
Maybe go and sit in your freezer and, and log into this grid. That will cure your overheating. Right. Sorry, I'm being flippant. Okay, Neverworld Grid isn't having a party on the 4th, but it's partying hard on the weekend. Festivities starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. And yeah, this is all at hg.neverworldgrid.com. 8002, of course, and the region is called Ruby. And on Saturday, there's the Pink Floyd Experience, hosted by Lock Semaphore, a four-screen interactive show featuring music and history of the Pink Floyd. That should be fun. And again, that's Neverworld Grid, but it's in a region called Blue Ice. Um, right, this is not entirely helpful. They say Neverworld Grid isn't having a party on the 4th, it's partying hard on the weekend. It doesn't say whether it's this weekend that we're on now or next weekend after July 4th. So that's not really very helpful, but I'm assuming it will be after July 4th. But if you've got time now after this show and want to pop in over to Blue Ice or something, you might find maybe the virtual Pink Floyd experience is happening today. Who knows? It's not very helpful when you don't get the full whack, is it? Okay, moving on. Another post from Hypergrid Business. This is not event stuff. This is editorial. But somebody, Joshua Cartison Rutledge is the person who. Oh, Carson Rutledge. Okay, I think his name is Joshua May, and his avatar is Carsten Rutledge. That is the way I'm kind of reading that. Anyway, the article is why virtual world content creators should look beyond Second Life and OpenSim. Quite a comprehensive article. Given that this is supposed to be hyper grid business, it spends its first half talking about Second Life and a few cursory mentions of OpenSim, not the hypergrid itself, and then moves on to a small bit about OpenSim as an alternative, but then is going on back to Second Life permissions and stuff, and then finally moving to the case for Unity and Science Base. And I think I can't remember whether even no, he doesn't even get round to Arrivederci. So go figure. But actually, a very interesting, an interesting read anyway, as you would expect for somebody who's Maria's given publishing rights to. So yeah, that's at hypergridbusiness.com. Where else? And with that, I can announce that I'm at the end. Yes, I'm at the end of
Oh
my on
my.
screen links. Oh my, yes. So, Mr. James, have you got any thoughts on all that razzmatazz? In other words, news.
No, not really. You know, I've looked at the Valve Index, the
Right,
new headset, and I'm not. Um, I mean, the high quality experience I think is really is an advantage for people who are in that place. I'm just so much happier with the instant on ability of the Oculus Quest. it's
right.
it's completely easy to use.
Now, yeah, I know you also use the Windows as a mixed reality headset.
That's right. Yep.
And there was supposed to, of course, that I mean, we didn't really give any news from Microsoft as such, except to imply that stocks are running low just about everywhere,
Right. Right.
and it's not even being advertised by Microsoft anymore. Do you say, will you, if I mean, I presume the software that was, the kit you got will still be usable with various apps and things. Do you think that would be a major loss? Or will you be quite happy to stay with things like Oculus Rift and follow their upgrade paths?
Um, I guess somewhere in the middle of that. I think that I mean I've viewed the mixed reality headsets as a transitional technology. In fact, I still view a lot of it as a transitional technology to
Yeah.
something that is going to be more stable. But um, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, both headsets.
Yeah. Yeah, I gathered from what you said in the past that you've been more than happy with it. But
Yep. Yep.
I guess, it's competing, it's still not cheap.
No.
It is
No.
a more consumer friendly product than some of the others. But, if you're up against Oculus with, I have to say any corporation that compete with Microsoft for pushing something is probably Facebook. And then you've got what many people think are superior HTC Vive things. But I mean, you're up against so much, and again, it's I don't know that Microsoft also have a problem with their App Store. Not just the Windows,
Oh, right. Right.
Microsoft Store, but the Windows Store. I mean, you don't associate their mixed reality headset with any particular piece of software. When you think of reviews of games and interactive things we've seen, and even creation programs like Tiltbrush or stuff, and they kind of tend to get associated with the Oculus and HTC names and things.
Hmm.
Even PlayStation, for crumb's sake, which is the biggest of the lot in many ways, although a different demographic. Um, and you've got all the stuff, that you can put into, I've got one of the Oculus Goes, and I
Hmm.
really hardly ever put it on after the novelty wore off. But I mean, I know you download stuff into it, and I'd rather I downloaded it onto my phone and then plugged in well, we all know my thoughts on that. But I can't think of any piece of software, 3D software, that I've always associated with Windows headset.
Hmm.
Except possibly, I don't even remember what it's called, but I think there is actually a version of Windows itself that is optimized for use with the headset.
And I think
Presumably, there's a
Steam is
bit.
probably the most frequently used
Uh,
on
I'm
Windows
thinking
mixed
more of
reality.
their own. I was thinking more of their
Yeah.
own operating system.
Nope.
Like
Nope.
if you press an icon on a touch screen, it opens just the way as if you double click on it on a 2D screen.
Right.
I'm just wondering if in the mixed reality headset you could look at it and open it or gesture at it or something.
Yep. To some degree there
But
is, but not to the degree of the other headsets.
yeah. Okay, well, I suspect it's bye bye to yet another Microsoft endeavor.
It will.
Not
Yeah.
not
We'll have
quite,
to see.
yeah, not quite up to scratch for the mega corporations
Hmm.
fiddling. We will see. Okay, well, I think that's it from us this week then. Despite my delays getting the news yesterday, I seem to have caught up on it all. Um, right, well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. So until
Yep.
then, it's goodbye from this bloke here.
And it's goodbye from this bloke here.
Ah, that bloke there. Sorry, I'm quibbling. I'm
That's
quibbling. This isn't rabbit hole. This is quibbling.
okay.
Sorry about that. We should have rehearsed this. Anyway,
Every
actually,
week's
is
a
it?
rehearsal.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it's goodbye from the two of us, and we will return. So have a good week, everybody. Bye for now.